All right, so back to the question. Who here knows about Ignite Talks? What Ignite Talks are? Okay, only a couple of you stuck around from the last question. Ignite Talks, they are a 5-minute short, gotta love it when your watch lets you know that you've hit your step goal while you're in the middle of talking. Great, ADHD right there. It's a 5-minute talk, 20 slides, self-advancing every 15 seconds. Now, if you think this is, hey, anyone can do a 5-minute talk. Yes, when you can self-guide the slides, these automatically push you on. It is a skill that is great to kind of exercise a new muscle with speaking and kind of your interaction with an audience. So with that, we're going to have the first Ignite talk is going to be JJ Asghar, and he's going to give, you say you can exit Vim, have you ever tried exiting Ed instead? And with that, as soon as your slide shows up, you're good to go.
Hello, there we go. Hi. So, hi, everyone. Oh, you gotta hit the little play button. Hey, everybody, my name is JJ Asghar. I really do have the email address of awesome@ibm.com. And no joke, I've tried to do this talks for about 7 years, and I finally had an opportunity to do it here for the second time. First time was at Cloud Austin, so thank you. So what is Ed? We all know what Vim is, but it was actually developed by Ken Thompson in 1969 on the PD7 at Bell Labs. It is actually on every single person's laptop right now, you just don't realize it. If you want to get into it, all you got to do is type Ed. And that's really it, which is really nice. So it means you actually have a text editor on your laptop that you didn't even know existed. It's part of the POSIX standard also, so every single Mac and, frankly, Windows because of WSL. How do you get out of it? Because as soon as you type Ed, you're like, what the fuck, man? So you hit Q. And that's actually how you get out, which is cool. It helps out quite a bit. And having that little counter there is great. Normally don't have it. That's wonderful. So when you saw that, when you clicked on the Ed button, you typed Ed, there was nothing there. You need to add a prompt so that you know that you're actually inside of Ed. So that's how you add it. As you notice, there's a little slash right there. It's because, you know, bash is evil sometimes. But then you just type that little command. So as you see here, when you add a new line to a document, or add a new line with that A, you can type something. And then I'm typing something else. And then you hit period, and then now you're done typing into it, which is nice. It's just a buffer. It's not actually a file yet. So how do you print out that last line? What does print start with? P. Oh, cool. P. That's the last line. It only prints out that last line, which is nice. And my timing's off. Wonderful. Now, if you need to move around because of why just only look at the last line of the file, you probably have more lines. You use things called numbers. Very nice, right? So you type with number 1, and then boom, you see, hey, this is the first line on that. Now, if you hit N, you actually get the line number, which is nice. But if you want to add something after that line, so if you want to do it, you just hit the A, maybe append. That seems reasonable. And now, if you want to see and finish the appendation, you type 3, and then all of a sudden, I'm seeing the third line. Believe it or not, this whole file actually does work. But if you need to add before it, you need to type the letter I. And I will allow you to write above that line. Now, you're probably wondering how you fix the spelling, and I'm an atrocious speller. This comes up in a second. Now, if you need to replace a line, essentially we need to replace line 4, you type the letter C. And then all of a sudden, you can just write over that line, which is C4 change. Hey, there seems to be logic here. But we got to sometimes delete. Who knows how to delete a line inside of Vim? It's usually % number. Oh, it's gone faster than I was expecting. Now, you use that D line, and all of a sudden it deletes the whole line, which is something great. You can join lines too. Now, J, if you didn't know, capital J inside of Vim actually joins lines. That comes from influence here, where the J is joining lines. For instance, lines 3 and 4. Breathe. Now, if you want to see the full buffer, which, by the way, it is called a buffer, so Emacs, yay, you do %P. Wait, %, that seems really familiar. That's also out of Vim too, because it was started here. So if you want to just print out a portion of the file for line 3 and 4, 3, 4, all of a sudden you print out those lines, which is nice. Breathe again. Now, this is interesting because sometimes you need to print out relative lines. Now, how many times have you used grep to grep out something, and then all of a sudden you need like, oh, I need the line ahead of it or behind it? Plus and minus. Comes directly from here again. As you can see, line 4 right there moves up and down. Now, you can actually even move lines with, what is it? M. Yes, there's actual logic here, which is really neat when you start getting deeper into this space. It's like people actually thought about what they were doing. And also, you know, teletyping. Now, this one's interesting. What does that mean? No. We all love grep. Turns out grep actually originated from this actual line. If you look, grep is actually coming from ed. And also, with the slash inside of Vim for search, you can go ahead and do slash inside of here, so you can actually find that specific line you were looking for all through the file, which seems pretty consistent. Almost. And then finally, you can write out the file with just simple W, which is wonderful. And you know, that's learning ed. You can absolutely get these slides off of me. I stole it from someone else because that's the best way to get the information. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Fantastic. That's, you can also just use VS Code. Do you know that? That's that. Or Pine. I mean, there's that too. JJ is one of my good friends. That's why I'm giving him such. Okay. All right. So we have Buddha. I was going to be talking about 3 ways to accelerate your API platform maturity. And when we get set here, you're ready to go?
We're ready to go.
All right. Let's do it.
Yes?
Go.
All right. Hello and welcome everyone to DevOps Days, Kansas City. I am Buddha, developer advocate at Tyke. And today I'm going to be talking to you about 3 ways to accelerate your API platform maturity. Now, for those who have been in the realm of APIs and API platforms, these are some of the statistics that might be familiar to you. Back in 2023, 71% of all web traffic was API calls. At an enterprise level, that was 1.5 billion calls being made. APIs are important. They form the fabric of the internet. But building APIs is hard. It's not just about the functional logic. It's also about the security. It's about governance, but also managing distributed teams, evolving needs, and expanding tool stacks. So what is the solution? One of the solutions is API platforms. Now, API platform, for those who don't know, it's a platform that enables developers to build and manage API products better, faster, and efficiently. It's an oversimplification, but that's kind of the essence of it. Now, we have to take a pause here to look at what the need for an API platform maturity is, because we've been here before, where there's been a lot of investment in a lot of different ways of working in a lot of different areas, but are we asking the right questions this time, or are we still too solutions-focused? And that's where we come to the API platform maturity model. This is a holistic, open framework for you to assess some of the outcomes that an API platform can drive at the decision makers level as well as the implementers level. So why is this important? Because it gives you a way to assess your API platform maturity as it is today, create a roadmap for the future, and then bridge the gap by investing effectively as an organization. Now, this is it's got 2 parts to it. The first part is dedicated towards your platform managers and decision makers. It looks at a bit more holistic outcome for an organization basis. There are 5 maturity pillars and 4 levels, going from level 1 to 4. The second part looks at the implementer side of things and looks at some of the, again, outcomes that an API platform should be driving. The idea is, from a level 1 perspective, it's a little bit more voluntary, a little bit more ad hoc, moving towards a lot more self-service platform for those outcomes. Now, talking about accelerating maturity, there is no silver bullet, unless you're a vampire hunter. So it's not just one tool, one system, one process that's going to get you all the way from a level 1 to a level 4 across all dimensions. So what is the solution? We start off with people. We've heard a lot about people. This is where we start. Here, I talk a little bit about the team composition, about a few different roles that have been successful. But the key role that you want to look at is the product owner's role, and think about why that's important. From a process standpoint, it's not about automation necessarily. We're again going back to the people focus, where we think about collaboration, communication, feedback. What are some of those processes that can actually harness some of these areas. So one such process is the jobs to be done work framework. And your process could be different from mine. And here this is about a perspective on why buyers or users make their decision to adopt a product. Now, there are a couple of different elements to this, and this is sort of one of the workshops that we had run, where we look at the pains and gains around the problems that we're trying to solve, some of the outcomes, and then creating tasks that help you get there. That is the idea behind a jobs to be done framework. Moving on to tools. Again, we don't want to talk about any unique specific tools because as we've heard, tools are a dime a dozen. But the idea is you focus on open standards so that you're not locked into specific ecosystems, specific vendor areas that you want to avoid. So finally, bringing it all together, we talk about API management. Obviously, as I work for an API management company, I'm not specifically talking about Tyke here, but it is an important element to consider for an API platform. One final element, which is the secret sauce, as I would say, which sort of encompasses all of this, is the mindset shift that is required to accelerate your maturity. Again, focuses on that people side of things too, but think about your platform as a product, where you not only look at it as a one-and-done thing, but it's a living, growing, evolving platform that you need to take care of. And then finally, think about the developer experience of it all. Think about how you can build and foster empathy across different teams that you're working with as a platform team. Now, if all that made sense, I want to leave you with some of the outcome that a mature platform team was able to get. This is one of our customers. We looked at sort of their release times going from 1.5 to 2 months down to 1 day, 1.5 hours of deploy times to 5 minutes, and then finally a cost saving of 30K. Now, if you want to have your own personalized platform maturity review call, you can book a session with me if you want to, or we can talk about horror movies, which is my favorite. So if you want to talk about anything, feel free to book a call. Otherwise, thank you for your time. This has been a lot of fun doing it for the first time, so appreciate it.
Well done. Well done. Great job. All right. Next, we have Curtis.
Hello?
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Did it work?
Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
Okay. So,
This looks
take
fancy.
it away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Curtis Blackthorne. I am an engineering manager at Belize Technologies, and I'm here to talk to you about kind of collaboration and how a name change probably isn't going to fix your collaboration problems. I had another working title for this talk, but maybe how to deal with DevSecOps, but I'm not happy about it. I mean, just because you shove security in the middle of the name doesn't mean you actually care about security. To me, you know, when we first started talking about DevOps and this all thing, we had this image of a utopia, that things were just gonna work. That, hey, because we now have a DevOps team, or we have these DevOps people, or we're doing these DevOps technologies, magically things would get better. And then we decided to change that somehow, and it had me really concerned. So DevSecOps, what is that all about? Is this just a fancy new business term we want? Like, are we really hiring for this? Were you guys not doing security before you put this in your name? Yikes. And so, I mean, it's not like DevOps is hard. Look at all the different tools and processes and things that go on with it. I mean, how hard would it be to figure out, you know, security can go over here somewhere. We didn't have to just inject it in the middle, but apparently, you know, people did not know this was the workflow, and they didn't understand how this worked. So, I mean, there was devs, and obviously security is important. Shove that right in the middle. I mean, make sure it's big and everybody sees it. Ops, and then, yeah, maybe testing. QA doesn't matter. They're not people, right? No. Let's see, there's a lot of laughter, no angry faces. I'm safe. But let's come back. DevSecOps, what's that all about? I mean, it's a good new term. I don't think we should be like hiring for it. I'm hiring for DevSecOps people, by the way. So the thing is, like, we just kind of decided to add to it for a business term because we wanted people to understand for security. But why didn't we do that with other things? Like Dev Legal Ops. We can have Dev Leg Ops. Are you not automating your systems to make sure that you're using the right licenses when you do third-party libraries? To make sure you're not doing copyleft when you shouldn't be? How about marketing? Are you doing Dev Markops? Are we sitting here making sure that you're talking to your marketing team about your product before it goes out the door? Because Lord knows salespeople never sell a product you don't have yet. So let's make sure they're involved with the process. I mean, we could keep adding things to this, but the thing you have to remember, just because now you're saying DevSecOps doesn't mean your process is going to change. If your process is rigid, where am I going to put security in here if it wasn't there to begin with? I can't just move some of these gears easily, just by changing the name. This has always been about collaboration with other people. This has always been about communication, and this has always been about trying to get the smoothest pipeline that you could get for software delivery. So just by changing the name won't change your process. And here's a little secret for you. DevOps hasn't mattered either. It was just a fancy name we put on this work anyway. We were all doing this, some of us weren't, and we felt like we had to call it out. And so now we're doing the exact same thing with DevSecOps. We're having to call it out. Now, I will say warning. I used to say this all the time. DevOps engineer should not be a position. Have you guys ever hired a waterfall engineer or an agile engineer? That sounds silly. DevOps engineer should sound just as silly. DevSecOps engineer should sound even more silly. But yet, we keep saying it, we keep seeing it, and we keep hearing it from people, and we shouldn't accept that. We want engineers. We don't need people. We want people that are trained to understand the DevOps practices and principles, not have a DevOps team. So how do we stop this? Can we stop the dominoes that are falling? The problem is these dominoes, they're not the size of your hand anymore. They're the size of the empty buildings downtown because everybody's working hybrid. So good luck stopping a skyscraper from falling on you. You can drink heavily to forget about it, but that doesn't necessarily work. You're still gonna have to get your job done, and that fire you just put out is gonna be back tomorrow because Lord knows security wasn't there, right? You just got DevSecOps. But in all seriousness, what do you do? How do you kind of fix this issue? Well, I mean, the same thing we've always done. It's collaboration, it's communication, and it's making sure that you have all the things that you need, that you're putting together an idea and you're sticking to it. Especially if you're doing job postings for something DevSecOps, or you're hiring for DevSecOps, or you're looking for a DevSecOps job. Make sure you're asking the right questions. Like if they say they're DevSecOps, ask the question of like, oh, when did you make that change? Like, what's your security? And maybe you'll find that good role. Maybe you'll change that at your career or at your company, and it works. And now all of a sudden you're secure. But a wise man once told me, like, you know, I could take a shit in a box and put a guarantee on the side of the box, and I've just sold you a guaranteed piece of shit. DevSecOps, not much different. And with that, I will see you guys later. I'll probably have an open table to talk about this, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Curtis. Gotta love a Tommy Boy reference. It's great. Mentioned hiring. Throw this out there real quick. We do have two hiring board for those that are hiring and those that are looking for jobs. So don't forget to put your info out there. If you want to put DevOps engineer or DevSecOps engineer, you can go ahead and do that. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so, whoops, nope, not starting that one again. All right, Duan, you're going to talk to us about make it simple using generative AI to accelerate learning.
I am.
You ready to go? All right, here we go.
Make it simple using generative AI to accelerate learning. My name is Dewan Lightfoot. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and today we're going to talk about how we can evolve, how we learn, and knowledge share. Meet Terry Whitlock. He's our latest new hire, no relation to Jason Whitlock. He's excited to be a part of our DevOps team. There's so much to learn in our environment. And of course, as we introduce Terry Whitlock, we want to let him know that we have 150 tools for him to learn, and he needs to learn them by Friday. How many of you can relate? Exactly. So the thing is about these tools that Terry needs to learn, when we join our organizations, it's always a process of the lack of training, the lack of mentorship, the lack of documentation, the lack of updated documentation. It's like an ever-ending cycle, whether you're a new hire or you're trying to upskill. So with this talk, my goal is to help us think of ways that we can evolve. And what we really need is to help DevOps engineers and developers understand that you don't have to feel lost, you don't have to feel confused. There are tools and there's ways to do this. So what do we need? We need to be able to use our natural language to ask questions about our documentation, to query our documentation, to gain insights from our documentation beyond just the traditional search, because it doesn't work. And here's where generative AI comes in. Generative AI allows us to use a prompt to ask the large language models questions like generate me an image of a monster or generate me a new document for my environment or my DevOps operations. Generative AIs give us a ton of new capabilities at our fingertips. There we go. So how does it work? Basically, generative AI takes public data from the internet, trains a foundational model with pre-training. Once that foundational model sees that data, it's able to learn new capabilities like text generation, summarization, but there's some challenges around that. The large language model does not understand our proprietary information in our organization. It also doesn't have any context around the current date or current time. There's many challenges that are related to this. For example, here we're using the Anthropic Claude 3 large language model, and we're asking it about our internal application called Inframind. Notice that Claude has no recollection of this application in the data that's in the foundational model. So what we really need to do is customize this model. And there's ways to do this from left to right, ranging in the complexity, quality, cost, and time of how we want to customize our model. So for today's solution, we're going to use RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where we retrieve data from an external data source, augment that data in the form of a prompt, and then generate a response from a large language model. Now, how RAG works, it has two workflows. First, the data ingestion workflows, where we take the data, embed it into a vector store, and then we have the text generation workflow where we actually retrieve the data from the vector store, augment it in the form of a prompt, and then we're able to use it. Now here we create the data ingestion workflow. First thing we're going to do is gather our data with a Lambda function and store it in the S3 bucket. And we use this, and we can actually automate this with EventBridge. From there, we create a knowledge base in Amazon Bedrock, where we take our data, chunk it, create embeddings, and then store it in our vector store. This is fully managed. So 3 clicks, we can have this already created and have our fully managed ingestion pipeline. From there, we create our text generation pipeline or workflow with the knowledge base's retrieve and generation API. We create Lambda functions for this back-end Lambda function that we can actually query for our application. Once we put this together, we can call that Lambda function, create a front end for our application. Now when we ask it about what is Inframind and how do I get started, the large language model can now tell us how to actually do this. It has all the context that it actually needs. And so now when Terry joins our team, he can just use generative AI to actually do things and help our teams evolve. This is how we can evolve knowledge sharing. Now before we go, I'm gonna leave you with this quote from Claude. The richest resources for learning reside in a stubborn will to use what is already within our reach, wisely and to its fullest. We have all the tools we need to exceed. Right now is the best time, I believe, to be in tech. If you want to learn more, here's a link to a workshop. Check it out to get started with generative AI on AWS. My name is Lightfoot. I thank you for your time, and I'll catch you later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. The last one for us today is Eric Lee. He's going to be talking to us about dealing with layoffs. So, there we go.
Hey everybody, my name is Eric Lee. I'm Chief Emotional Officer for Mental Health Hackers. We try to destigmatize talking about your mental health in IT and also work on some of your soft skills. Day job is Solutions Architect at AWS, and I'm also a co-organizer of today. So over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of layoffs. This year alone, we're already over 80,000 tech layoffs. 2023, there was 260,000 tech layoffs. Most of these were done because larger companies were hiring up from smaller companies. And then over this last few years, the market's starting to correct itself as the economy has kind of dipped down. We've seen where a lot of very skilled people have moved up to the hyperscalers, and that's brought traction from the job market up, and now everything's going back down. CompTIA shows that as of February this year, unemployment, though, in the tech industry is still below the national unemployment average at 2.7% versus national average of 3.5%. So what do you do if you get laid off? Well, the first thing is to know your rights. Each state is a little bit different on how you can go, they have to give you, how much notice they have to give you. Different countries are different as well, too. Understand your pay and benefits before you sign anything at all. Legally, you can have representation before you sign anything. You should be updating your resume every quarter. with things that you've done. If you haven't, you need to do that as soon as possible. And ask your manager, your coworkers for letters of recommendation right away if you can, because you'll forget later on, especially for people you like. Unemployment can be filed digitally in almost every state nowadays, so you can go online and do that. The last thing is talk to your spouse and family and don't hide it from them. The last thing you want to do is them find out later on the hard way. If you're not sure how to talk to them, talk to a therapist, get support from friends if you need to, and use your network. I've only had one job in the last 26 years that I did not get through my network. So talk to people here, because you never know where you're going to find your next job. If a coworker gets laid off, there's certain things you should do and you should not do. Some of those you should do is show empathy to them, be there for them and support them. Help them land on their feet with anything they might need. Just be careful how you ask and how you do that. We'll touch on that more here in a minute. Get together for things. Get their mind off of it so they're not just sitting and dwelling on it. Do something fun, something interactive, and make sure everything is positive and not in a negative light if at all possible. Do not let them suffer silently and just fall into a hole and not talk to each other. I have some people in my tight group, one of them got laid off, and that was something that they did at first, and we really had to like show up to their doorstep, make them come out and just sit in the driveway and have a chat for a while and drink a beer. No alcohol if that's not your deal. Another thing to not do is gossip around the water cooler about who got laid off and why and this and that. It can have negative effects on yourself later on. It's something that's easy to do. Sometimes I'm still guilty of it, but try not to do it. Worst of all, don't put your foot in their mouth. The worst thing you can say is, well, you're better off now, you're not working here. How do you know they're better off? They might have a spouse, kids, other thing that rely on them, and now they have no job. So do not say things like that. Lastly, do not offer advice. The last thing somebody who's laid off wants to know is advice. Offer your support, what can I do to help you out, but don't offer advice if they're not asking for it themselves. I had somebody at a career panel ask me, how do I become unfireable? I'm new, I'm trying to get in, I don't want to be fired right away. First thing I tell them all the time is do your job before you complain about your job. My kids are horrible at this. They'll bitch about unloading the dishwasher for 2 hours, and it literally takes them 5 minutes. Anybody else? Yeah, right. The other thing is know your roles and projects and how it delivers business value. Not just the technical parts. We're here for technical, but on your resume, if you say, like, I upgraded 5,000 servers, who gives a crap? Anybody can do that. How did it help the company? Understand the compensation structure for not only yourself, but for the teams you support. If you help them make their goals, then they may have an opening and want to bring you over if they hear about layoffs or you're laid off. You'll become valuable not only to yourself, but to that other team as well, and they won't want to let you go. Last thing is, I had to learn this at an early age. Own your mistakes. Took down the mainframe multiple times. Walked in the door, said, I did this. I'll help restart the 300 printers across the company and all this other stuff. Once you do that, they know you've taken responsibility and learning and everything like that, and you can move on pretty quickly. Another thing is to promote yourself, but don't do it in a condescending way. I was guilty of this when I was younger. Nobody likes to hear you being a complete bragger about a bunch of stuff, but you do have to promote yourself on your resume. It's very hard to do in interviews, like how do I talk about myself and the great things I did without being a complete tool. So if you have any other questions about mental health hackers, we got stickers and stuff back there. I'm here to talk about stuff like that, but also run the event. So with that, thank you all.
All right. Excellent.